Todd from Lowbrow Customs here. Today we're going to show you how easy it is to change your fuel injected gas tank. We're going to show you install one of our new Cole Foster gas tanks. We just started stocking these recently. 07 and up. This tank holds 3 1/4 gallons of gasoline. There's your hole for your fuel injection. When you'll see here a little bit later in the video that everything is contained inside the gas tank. And it also has a nice threaded bung. It'll have an O-ring on there. That is inch and 5/16 size. Nice and compact, nice looking new tank. Specifically designed for the fuel injected models for the mounting tabs, bracketry. Let's go ahead and get started. First thing we want to do is go ahead and remove the seat. Just have a simple flathead screwdriver here. You've probably had the seat off your bike at one time or another. No big mystery going on here. If you haven't had the seat off one of these new bikes, there is a knob right about here and there's a tab here. So what you want to do is when you lift up the back, you're just going to push it forward. That releases it from the knob. See, there's a little thing right there, and there's a knob here on the motorcycle. Okay, you got 2 fasteners holding the gas tank to the frame, one on the rear and one on the front. Go ahead and take this one off. And generally these will have lock nuts on them so that when you tighten it, it doesn't come loose. Like this one does. There's the rear one. And the front one has a socket head. And I like to use my offset wrench on gas tanks. It keeps me away from the fasteners. This one. These generally aren't under any stress or pressure, so they're going to pop right off. All right, now that we've got the front and rear mounting bolts off the gas tank, we have 3 other things to disconnect before we can remove the tank. There's a quick disconnect fitting on the fuel pump itself that connects to the ignition module. Very easy to remove. It's just a push up, pull down. There's an anti-vapor valve line, and there is the electrical going to the fuel pump. This is your plug that energizes the fuel pump. Simply push this tab down and disconnect it. Right here's the tab that you're going to push on. Real simple. A couple zippy ties here I'm going to go ahead and cut off. Okay, see that connects right there. This is your fuel pump underneath the tank. This is your anti-vapor valve, which is connected to a fitting on the tank right here that just pulls off like so, right there. Here's your quick disconnect. You're gonna push up, and it's gonna pop right out, like so. Simple push and pull. Okay, now everything's removed from the gas tank. In order to remove it from the motorcycle, lift it carefully off. All right, the next thing we need to do is remove the fuel pump from the gas tank. Now, there really isn't any good way to drain this tank. If you were, like when I used to work at the Harley shop, basically I would hook the computer up to the motorcycle and I would go to a function that tests the fuel pump, and I would click on, and it would continually run the pump. And I had a spare fitting that looked like this that I cut the end off of that I would put into a gas can. I'd click that on, I'd energize the fuel pump and drain the tank. Since we don't have a computer, we're not a Harley motorcycle dealership, I'm going to show you the way I learned how to do it. Basically, we're just going to flip the tank over. Yes, there is gas in it. Make sure your cap is tight. And there is your fuel pump module. Turn it around so we can get to it. And there's going to be 5 screws in here that we're going to need to remove. Use a little common sense here. Obviously, if you see gas leaking out the other side, that's probably not the best plan of action. You're going to have to drain the tank. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and remove these 5 Torx head screws out of the fuel pump. They're going to be a T25 Torx bit. Okay, now the fuel pump will just come right out of the tank. Actually, the fuel pump, this filter screen, the regulator, the whole mess is in here. You kind of got to fiddle with it a little bit to get it to come out of there. Got the hose clamps kind of hanging up on the edge of that hole. There we go. When you get to this point, you're going to need to angle it like so, just a tad, and there you have it. This is your pump, filter screen, regulator, and also your low fuel is connected to this, so when your fuel gets low, the light comes on your speedometer. And that's basically what it looks like. Also worth noting, see, there's your low fuel. See, there's a gasket on here. I have changed these out before at the shop and not changed the gasket. You might want to take a good look at it, make sure it's in good shape, make sure it hasn't pulled out of the groove that it sits in. I'm not going to remove this one for the video, but you'll see that it's flat on both sides and it's got these rounded portions which holds it in this groove. So you just want to make sure it's in good shape and that it's completely seated in the groove before you install your pump assembly back into your new tank. Now we'll go ahead and introduce the fuel pump to the new tank. Again, pretty simple. Oh, let's try going the right way around. So again, you're going to angle it slightly right there at the beginning. And it just drops into place. You get your holes lined up. Go ahead and start your screws. As with anything like this that has a gasket that is sealing a fluid, you don't want to put one screw in and tighten it all the way up. You want to get all your screws started and then go back over it. So I generally like to just run them down in there a little bit, not all the way. Our last 3 screws here. See how it has quite a bit of movement there. So that's the reason for not tightening the first screws I put in. And if you are putting something together and it has threaded holes with a plate like this, and while you're screwing something just doesn't feel right, it's probably a good idea to stop, regroup, and figure out what the issue is. You don't want to just cram a screw into a hole hoping it's going to work. Okay, now that I've got all 5 of my screws in, I'm going to go ahead and snug them down. Nice and even. I'm not tightening any one all the way yet. I'm just pulling them all down a little at a time. Now there's a factory torque spec on this. You can refer to your service manual for that. It is going to be inch pounds. It's not going to be foot pounds. If you were to set your torque wrench to foot pounds and torque these small Torx head screws, you're probably going to strip the threads on the tank. So just pay careful attention to that. Pull it down evenly, tightly, do your torque, you're good to go. You're ready to put it back on the motorcycle. So now that I've got my fuel pump module reassembled onto the new tank, we'll go ahead and install the tank back onto the motorcycle. Once again, the brackets on here are designed for this style of bike, so we should go on with no issues. One thing worth noting is the coil bracket is also in conjunction with the front tank bracket. And I've noticed a lot of times if you're not paying attention, when you go to slide the front tabs of the tank over the coil bracket, it will kind of move away. There's like a square that this locates on the frame. So you just pay attention to that when you're putting the tank on, that your coil is located correctly. There it goes, right on, no problem. It's on there loosely. We can go ahead and put our bolts back in. Longer one goes on the front, shorter one on the rear. Rear one's on, we'll go ahead and get the front one on. Sometimes you have to lift up on this a little bit to get it to go through the hole. There she goes. All right, tank's back on. Go ahead and tighten the front and rear fasteners. Okay, last thing we need to do is reconnect our fuel pump electrical and our quick disconnect fitting. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and plug in our electrical connector for the fuel pump. You wanna make sure you've got it routed underneath the quick disconnect and the spark plug wire. And then you may notice there is some locating pins on here. You can only plug this in one way around. You can't screw this up. And you're gonna put that together, and as soon as this reaches that little nub, you'll hear an audible little click. Hear it? There goes a little click. We'll do it one more time. That tells you that it is securely connected together. And then we'll go ahead, and this is very simple. This is your line going, once again, going to your induction module. Just gonna introduce that to the hole, push this up, and it will pop down. Give it a little tug, make sure it is completely plugged in and it's not going to pop off. The gas tank does come with this cap. It is vented, has an O-ring for sealing. We do have some different caps available that are gonna have the same threads on them that will also work with this tank. We have a couple different styles on those and a couple different finishes, and you can see a video for those right here. And at this point, you could fill up your tank. Put your cap on. And go for a ride.